Hello, and thank you for watching this video on how to install RedHat Openshift onto Nutanix. The focus of this video will be using RedHat's assisted installer. However, for completeness, I just wanted to briefly describe how you may be able to use Prism Central's marketplace to deploy and install Openshift. However, it does rely on the fact that you are using the latest version of Prism Central 2023.4. So for further information, if you hit the Nutanix Support and Insights portal, then have a look through software documentation and then Prism, what you're looking for is the Prism Central Admin Center Guide. Now again, this relates to 2023.4. So if you've got an earlier version, you can use the RedHat's assisted installer, which I'll demonstrate next. Or if you wanted to upgrade, please do so, and then you'll be able to use the following steps on the marketplace. So if you have a look in the guide and then select the marketplace, preferred partner app deployment, then you'll be able to see deploying Openshift. And within here there are detailed steps to do to go through the deployment process. Now there are some prerequisites that I will call out now. You will need the Prism Central IP address, the Prism Element IP address, but you'll also need a couple of reserved IP addresses. For the first one, which is the Openshift API virtual IP address, and the second one will be the Openshift Ingress virtual IP address. Now if you're running this within a test and dev environment, all you can simply do is just reserve a couple of IP addresses from your primary subnet, and then you can use those to going forward. But as I said, this does rely on the fact that you're using PC 2023.4. So if you've got an earlier version of Prism Central, the following steps can be used, and I'm going to take you through the RedHat's assisted installer. Now, RedHat's simple and assisted installer will take you through, first of all, you need to log in, or you need to register and log in into the Red Hat Hybrid Cloud Console, and I'll take you through this wizard driven GUI here in a moment. I'll add these links to the description on the video, but again, there are detailed instructions in the guide about installing on Nutanix and the particular steps that you need to follow. There are some prerequisites, of course. These specifically relate to the creation of a couple of DNS records. So these relate to those virtual IP addresses that I've just been talking about. So if we have a look, if I just spin straight into my cluster, and I'll just show you what those DNS records look like. So if we have a look into the VMs, I have a DNS server. If I just quickly launch the console, I just need to log in. And open straight into DNS Manager. So as you can see, so there's a OCP domain name field there. We've got the API address associated with a we've got the API host A record associated with the IP address, and then we have an apps, and then we have a wildcard address associated with the second IP address. Wildcard address, yeah. And that's all you need to do in terms of the DNS. So I can just close that straight back down. And then really it's just going straight through creating an Openshift cluster. It's a fairly straightforward process. So you create a new cluster name, OCP. Please note it has to be in lowercase, so OCP there. Green tick. Your base domain will be your local DNS name, so in my case it's ntnxlab.local. You can be more specific about what version of Openshift you want to install. I'm just going to leave that at the defaults. The next bit really we need to change, integrate with external partner platforms. Pull down, select Nutanix, and then we just have to click next. You have the option to install additional operators, but again, unless you've got a particular requirement, I think you could probably just get away with just clicking next at here. Host discovery. Now, the process at this point is we're going to generate an ISO file that we'll download from this portal. Then we'll create the control plane and worker nodes within Prism using that ISO file. It'll boot from ISO and then it'll automatically appear in this console. So what we need to do we need to generate the ISO file. So first of all, we're going to add hosts. We're going to generate the discovery IO. Download discovery ISO there. Now I'm just going to pause this video whilst that's downloading, and I will see you on the other side. Okay, so the discovery ISO has now downloaded, so I can click close on that. And if we just flip over to the cluster, what I've actually done as well in the background, after I downloaded it, I've uploaded it as an image just to save us some time. Now, if we go into Prism Central, again, I'm going to create some VMs, and then we're going to control plane. Again, following the recommendations from RedHat, I'm going to create 3 of those. 2 virtuals, 2 CPU, 2 cores per CPU, and this one's going to have 16 gig of RAM. Going to click next. Attach a disk, CD-ROM, clone from the image. There's my discovery ISO. Click save. I need to add another disk. We're going to go for 100 gigabytes. Default container will be fine. Click save. Need to add it to the subnet that I have. I've only got the primary subnet available to me there. Just going to click save. Click next. Next. Create VM. Alright, so whilst it's doing that, I'm going to go back into create VM. And these are going to be my worker nodes. I think the recommendation's 2, but I'm still going to go with 3 again. I'm going to go for the same spec. Obviously, depending on your implementation, these specs may change depending on the size and any other requirements you have. And we're going to go through the same process again. I need to add in the discovery ISO. I need to add a second disk. Need to attach it to the subnet. And then I can just go next, next, create a VM. Now, what I'll do is I will power these ones on. Actions, power on, and then here's the power on selected, and I want to power on the worker nodes as well. Actions, power on, click OK. And if we just have a look, if I just launch the console on one of them, just to show you what's going on. Now hopefully if we've done this right, yeah. So it's booting off the Discovery ISO. So that's going to take a couple of minutes, but what we're looking for, if I just close that again, what we're looking for, if we go back into this Openshift cluster, you see it's still waiting for hosts. So when those virtual machines are up and running, and they're all booted from the ISOs, which will take a couple of minutes, we should see them populated in there. So again, I'm just going to pause the video and I'll see you on the other side. Okay, so the virtual machines are all booted up on the, if I just have a look, Prism Central, they're all fired up and running. 3 control plane nodes, and we've got the worker nodes there as well. So if we go back to the assisted installer, you can see that they're all ready. So if you didn't have the required amount of CPU or the required amount of memory or disk space, it would flag a warning. But let's say you forgot to install the hard drive, you could leave the VMs up and running, add the hard drive, and this screen will refresh accordingly. Now the roles are auto assigned by default, but I'm going to be specific in what I want them to do because they're all different specs. So worker node, and worker node. Everything's ready, and then we should be able to click next. Just a bit of a warning there, everything's going to be formatted, that's fine, so click next again. And this is the IP address information that you will need. So it picks up quite a bit of information from the cluster environment, but what you will need to do is you'll need to put these IP addresses in. So 10.38.18.221. Obviously these IP addresses will differ depending on your own environment. But again, if you're doing it in a test and dev environment, just reserve a couple of IP addresses from your primary subnet, and that will suffice. You do have the option of adding in SSH public key for troubleshooting after. This is something that you may want to do, so you can use the core, something called the core user account to connect into the implementation for any troubleshooting if you need to do that. Select learn more and then you can go through, but for this video I'm not going to do that. If we just scroll down and then click next, there's a bit of a summary information there. Please take note that platform integration, you will need to modify your platform configuration after cluster installation is completed. There will be a link in a moment that I'll show you. I wasn't planning on covering that in this video. It's basically just using some of the Openshift command line just to make sure that you've added in the correct Prism Central and Prism Element IP addresses, but we can cover that in a moment. And then install cluster, and then that's it for the moment. I'm going to pause the video. This is going to take at least 30 minutes, maybe a bit longer to install, but I will catch you on the other side. Okay, so that's installation complete. We've got green ticks installed across all the 3 control planes and the 3 worker nodes. You're also given the web console URL that you access from your internal network, username, kubeadmin, and the password, which you can select this box over to the right hand side and copy to the clipboard. So what I've done, if we just flip over to Prism Central, I've created a VM just with Google Chrome installed. I can launch the console, make that a little bit bigger, and there I've just logged in. And there you go, there's the Openshift dashboard and user interface for you to get started with. I'll jump back to what I've said previously, that there are some additional configuration requirements that you need to follow. So this yellow banner here, modify your platform configuration. If you select that link, learn about the configuration, you have to modify some of the aspects specific for Nutanix. And what you need to do is you need to install and run the OCP command line utility to do this. It's straightforward. I wasn't going to cover it in this video. It's fairly straightforward, and you just need to run the command line utility, add in the Prism Central and Prism Element IP addresses, and then just continue down, and then away you go. And that concludes the video to get you up and running, to get you started with Red Hat OpenShift on Nutanix. Thank you very much.